Hey, Peter.
It's another month, so let's look back at all the films and TV shows that I watched in the month of April. Starting with Godzilla x Kong: New Empire. I've already made an unscripted movie review on this film, but in short, it's a really fun time. It can also be very stupid and maybe too goofy, and the human stuff just gets on my nerves like all the other Monsterverse films, but overall it's fun. And then I watched Ricky Stanicky. This surprised me with how funny and well written it ended up being. This is directed by one of the Farrelly brothers, who directed Dumb and Dumber and Me, Myself and Irene, which are just two iconic comedies in my opinion, so it's no surprise that I would love this film. The concept is just so interesting about this lie that has grown and grown over the years, to the point that it becomes like a massive problem, and the way these friends deal with that by bringing John Cena's character in, and the wacky comedy movie shenanigans that ensue is just great. Sure, there is a lot of penis humour in here, and jokes that a 14-year-old might find funny, I guess, but I found it funny also. I also found the ending to be very unexpected as well. I wasn't expecting it to go in the direction that it went in. It is very basic from a filmmaking aspect. We've got a lot of static shots in here that just make a lot of scenes really boring, but I just had a great time with this film. I found it to be very rewatchable if I want a quick laugh, you know. I give it a 7.5. And then I finished rewatching season 1 of Smiling Friends. I decided to watch this for season 2 that comes out this month, and this whole season combined is less than an hour and a half, so it's definitely worth a rewatch, and it's still just as perfect as I remember. I just love how unique the humour is compared to other shows, and how basically every joke manages to land. The merging of different animation styles is great as well. I like how the concepts for each episode are very far out and wacky, kind of like regular show, which I'm also watching, but it kind of has a grounded nature to them, if that makes sense. I still just absolutely love this first season. I give it a 10. And then I watched Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro. I wanted to finish off Hayao Miyazaki's filmography with this film, which is his debut as a director, and this is a surprisingly great first film for him. And yes, I liked it better than Princess Mononoke. I'm sorry. The slapstick in this film is just so fun, and there's some set pieces involved here that kind of remind me of a Jackie Chan film. The story is also pretty simple and easy to follow, and Lupin as a character is very likeable. It also has amazing animation, as always for a Miyazaki film, and it feels like it takes a lot of inspiration from Disney, with the large expressions and the quick movements, compared to other Miyazaki films. I just really like this. I give it an 8. And then I watched Taxi Driver. I wanted to get back into some of Scorsese's films with this film, and it is considered to be one of the best films of all time, and I definitely understand why. Everything in this film just feels so ahead of its time. The cinematography is unbelievable for the 1970s, and I love how it shows New York from this extremely grounded perspective, and how everything this character hates about this city eventually gets to a boiling point and he cracks. Robert De Niro does a great performance in it, and his character is very unpredictable with how he interacts with different people. Sometimes he struggles to talk to people at all, but when he's talking to someone like Iris, he's almost a completely different person. The final act was just really tense, and the only thing I was kind of mixed on was the ending, because I think it just left things a bit too in the dark. But apart from that, it's an almost perfect film from Scorsese. I give it a 9.5. And then I watched Invincible Season 2 Part 2. This half was definitely better than the first. I just think everything was adapted extremely well, and stuff was expanded on from the comics very naturally. The finale gave me chills as well, mainly because of Stephen Yeun's amazing voice performance. I don't think it's as good as the perfection of season 1, but it's pretty close. I give it a 9. And then I watched Mad Max. I was actually hating this film for the first half, and I was ready to give it something like a 4, but the second half really turned me around, probably because it focused on the actual Mad Max for that half, and all that stuff with him trying to escape this group of weird psychos was very fun. I feel like this film has a low budget charm to it as well, as apparently it's supposed to be post-apocalyptic, but obviously they didn't have the budget to pull that off really, so it's just filmed in Australia. The first half was just extremely messy in my opinion, with all these different characters being focused on. It was kind of giving me a headache, but the second half was great. I give it a 6. And then I watched After Hours. This was a Scorsese film that I was very eager to check out because it was listed as a comedy, and I wanted to see how Scorsese would pull off something like a comedy, which he's not really known for. The constant escalation of everything in this film is perfect, and you end up feeling more and more for this main character. I love how it explores this area as well, and you're constantly going back and forth and place to place, person to person, and you kind of get really familiar with this little area. It also has a bit of dread sprinkled in there as well, as this guy cannot catch a break and just wants to get back to his apartment to get some sleep. Yeah, I just love it. It's my second favourite Scorsese film under the King of Comedy. I give it a 10. And then I watched The Last Temptation of Christ. This is a very controversial film from Scorsese, which I very much enjoyed as someone who isn't a Christian. I do think it started very slow, and I just found the period setting of the film to be a bit boring. But once Jesus started to gain disciples and starts using his powers, then I started to get really invested. I actually took religious studies as a GCSE course, so I'm very familiar with the Last Supper and Jesus' crucifixion and saving everyone of their sins and that. So when the Last Supper scene actually happened, I kind of got hyped. I do really like how it deviates from the Bible in a lot of ways, even though it might be blasphemous, but it explores Jesus as a character and it exposes his flaws, which the Bible doesn't really do all that much, I don't think. I haven't read the whole Bible, but Willem Dafoe does a great performance in there as well. And the cinematography, especially when Jesus is crucified, just looks amazing. Yeah, I just thought it was a really great film. I give it an 8.5. And then I watched Goodfellas. This was another amazing film from Scorsese. I watched Casino last year, and that film is pretty similar with how Scorsese approaches the voiceovers and the relationship the men have with the women. I think this is a better film overall though. I just think it's paced much better and the writing is just so good. I was interested and intrigued pretty much the whole runtime. I really just love how it throws you into the story as well and introduces everyone in a very natural and fun way. And the development these characters go on over the course of the film is really interesting. There's so many twists and turns as well, and it ends in a really unsatisfying but a well-deserved way for the main character, who's played really well by Ray Liotta. I wasn't actually expecting Ray Liotta's character to be the main character, judging by the poster. I give it 9.5. And then I watched X. I saw the Maxine trailer on YouTube, and that is the third film in this trilogy, and it looked really good, so I immediately wanted to watch the first film. It does play into a lot of horror tropes, and it does feel a bit predictable with the story and the kills, but it's so fun. Mia Goth is obviously a massive standout here at playing two very different characters at once, and she plays them both really well. The old people in this film were just very creepy, and when they started killing people they got even more creepier. I like how it deals with the theme of aging and how this couple are just so desperate to feel young again. I thought the final act got really tense and it ended in a very fun place. I left the film wanting to know the backstory of the couple, which it explores in Pearl, which is the next film. Yeah, I give it an 8. And then I watched Kung Fu Panda 4. I surprisingly found this to be better than the third film, I'm not gonna lie. I just thought that was better paced, and I think it had better jokes that made me laugh than the third film. I also preferred the villain to J.K. Simmons' character, and I just thought her motives and her ability to shapeshift was just way more interesting, even though I thought it could have been used more. I thought Awkwafina was surprisingly good as the fox, up until the twist, which I just found to be really predictable, and everything that followed with her character was just a bunch of cliches that just kind of ruined her character for me. Obviously the big problem with this film is the lack of the Furious Five, and I did kind of miss them, but I think the film makes up for it with the chemistry between Poe's dads, who are just really fun tailing behind Poe. I just thought it was a great side plot. I also thought it ended better than the third film as well and closed Poe's arc in a pretty satisfying way. I give it a 7.5. And then I watched Pearl. This really surprised me with how good of a sequel this was. Mia Goth did an Oscar-worthy performance in this film, which might be too good for a horror film. I love how it explores the character of Pearl and how she became the person she became in X. I think the style of this film is just so great and colourful as well. It's just so lovely to look at. I love how the story just constantly escalates and how it delves into Pearl's mental health and the issues with the family. It's done really well. And then you've obviously got that final act with that 6-minute long one-shot monologue from Pearl, and you've also got that final scene with the iconic shot of Pearl smiling playing over the credits. It's a great film. I give it a 9. And then I watched Mad Max The Road Warrior. This is a very solid sequel. It's firstly very different, and it's more of what I thought of when I think of Mad Max. It's a much more post-apocalyptic setting, and you've also got a bunch more crazy people in it. The stunt work in this film must be some of the best stunt work I've seen in a film ever, probably. It's just unbelievable how they managed to film some of these sequences. The visuals are great as well, and there's some shots in here that look like they could have been filmed today. They're just so good. I'm not as into the story as I wanted to be, and the Mad Max world maybe isn't my thing, similar to Star Wars, but it's just a pretty fun time front to back. I give it a 7. And then I watched Bullet Train. This film was very fun, but it was also very odd. It has a very unique style to it, and it can be very messy in moments, but a lot of the comedy in this film really lands, and a lot of the action really lands. I said before that I'm not the biggest fan of hyperlink films, but they managed to link every character's story together really well, and this train setting is just so good for a plot like this. I give it an 8. And then I watched the first week of Coachella 2024. I thought I'd include this. It's not a film or a TV show, but I saw a bit of Coachella. I watched 2 performances. I firstly watched Blur, and I thought they were pretty good. I think Damon is better live with gorillas, but this performance still has so much energy to it. I do think they maybe played one too many deep cuts. The crowd was just so terrible as well. You can tell they're just a proper American crowd, and Blur is a very British band, so it didn't clash that well. There was hardly any engagement on some songs, especially Girls and Boys, and it just led to so many cringe-worthy moments where Damon was trying to get some audience participation so bad, but there was just nothing. But overall, it was a good set. And then I also watched Tyler the Creator, which was much longer and much wilder. It was just so entertaining from start to finish, and the energy radiating from him was just amazing. The transitions from song to song were amazing as well, and the actual stage he performed on was great, with the cliffs and the caravan. Of the two Coachella performances I saw, I definitely thought Tyler's was the better one. And then watched Mars Attacks. This is a Tim Burton film that I was very interested in watching after seeing the very stacked cast involved with it. And overall, it's an absolutely wild ride of a film. It's very unhinged. There's a lot of moments where the characters in here act really stupid to make the plot move along, but it definitely played into that, and there was just so many goofy moments and weird scenes that I just couldn't help but love. The aliens in this film are just great as well, and the design is just so weird. I'm pretty sure they're based on trading cards or something, but the way they go about taking over the earth and killing everyone and just not caring about literally anything that lives on earth, it's just so funny. It's probably the craziest film I've watched in a while, and I really like it because of that. I give it an 8. And then watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure. There's another weird and wacky Tim Burton film, but it might actually be my favourite from him. I really didn't like Pee-wee at the start. He just seemed like a very annoying man-child, but his character grew extremely quickly on me. I just love the road trip aspect of the film and the lengths he goes to try and get his bike back. This film is also extremely funny and doesn't at all feel like a debut from a director. This film just looks great as well. There's some really amazing and creative shots in it that kind of represent how crazy Pee-wee is. The ending gets surprisingly meta as well, which I liked, and it ends things really well. I give it a 9. And then watch Immaculate. This was just a very solid horror with a great performance from Sydney Sweeney. It can be very predictable, especially with the jump scares, but the third act went in a very interesting direction, and there are some pretty unsettling moments. I like how it develops the main character as well and builds her up to be very likeable, and you're right along with her when all this weird stuff starts going on. It's also very short, at under an hour and a half, so it definitely doesn't overstay its welcome, which I appreciate. Yeah, it's just very good. I give it an 8. And then I watched Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I didn't really like this one. I didn't really like it. I love Tina Turner's character. I thought she was really great in it, and there were some fun fight scenes in the first half, but the second half was just so not that good. The whole stuff with this tribe and Max getting his humanity back or whatever, I didn't care for it at all. The third act with the chases on the bikes and all that did kind of have the same fun nature as the last two films, but it just wasn't enough to save the film for me. I give it a 5. And then watched Late Night with the Devil. I thought it was a very solid semi-found footage horror film. I think the big problem with this film is that it's too high quality. If this film was like in VHS quality, then it would be much more immersive, and it would also hide the not great looking visual effects that really took me out of this film. Another big problem that has spread all over the internet is the use of AI imagery in this film, which is just a pretty stupid thing to do from the filmmakers. It's like 3 images that they could have paid someone hardly nothing to just do. It did sell me on the film quite a bit, I'm not gonna lie, but I can't deny that almost everything about this film is so great. I was just invested the whole way through, and there's so many performances in this film that were amazing and sometimes very haunting. I give it an 8.5. And then watch Cape Fear. Talking of haunting performances, Robert De Niro did an absolutely insane performance in this film that I just love so much. It kind of reminds me of Michael Myers with how he constantly keeps coming back to stalk this person, and the reasoning behind him wanting to stalk this man is pretty understandable, even though what he did is still pretty terrible. The different ways this guy tries to get to this man and ruin his life is so interesting, and the plot just gets crazier and crazier. I did think the end got a bit too goofy, and it kind of clashed with the very serious tone that it was trying to go for, but overall it's another very solid Scorsese film. I give it an 8.5 again. And then you got Monkey Man. This is just a really great directorial debut from Dev Patel that really embraced its culture and made for a very entertaining entertaining and engaging story. I heard a lot of complaints saying that the action scenes are too much shaky cam and you couldn't see what's going on, but I think it really added to the film with how claustrophobic and kind of disorienting the action feels. I like Dev Patel's character and the arc he goes on over the film and how he's fueled by revenge. A lot of people say it's like an Indian John Wick, and definitely has aspects of the story of John Wick in there, but it really comes into its own by the end, I think, and has a semi cliffhanger ending that I kind of liked. I give it an 8.5. And then I finished watching the Fallout series. I thought I'd share my experience with the game before talking about the show. I've played like 2 hours of New Vegas, but I didn't really find it to be my type of game, and I just kind of left it. But I really like this show. I think it's just very well written for the most part, and the world building is great. I really like the main character and how she changes over the course of the show as she is exposed to the real world and the surface. I also thought nearly all of the side characters have their characters fleshed out and developed on really well, especially Cooper. I really like the flashbacks involved with his character, and I just found myself to be extremely invested in his story. I did find the side plot going on with these 2 people finding stuff out about the neighbouring vaults and what's going on with the neighbouring vault. I found that a little bit uninteresting, and there were a lot of coincidences involved with characters meeting other characters and that. But overall, it's a very solid show. I give it an 8.5. This is my third 8.5 I've given. Oh my god. And then watched Mad Max Fury Road. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't like this as much as I thought I was going to. I thought the first 30 minutes of this film were not great, and I really didn't like how shots were sped up and how it would cut to something for like a millisecond. I just found it to be all very disorienting, and I just couldn't focus on any one thing going on. But after that first 30 minutes, it definitely got much better, and I became much more invested in everything going on. I think they developed Max's character much better than what they did in the original trilogy, and all of the villains were also equally as fleshed out, and the designs of all of them were great as well. I'm a little disappointed about the use of CG doubles, and there are a lot of CGI moments that they would have done practically in the original films. Overall, I think it's the best Mad Max film. I give it an 8. And then I watched Love Lies Bleeding. This is another A24 film that works for me. I thought the performances all around were great, and the story being told here is very engaging. I think the relationship between these 2 characters is done very well, and it's just so tense seeing things constantly escalate over the course of the film. I do think it leaned a bit too far into the absurd territory during the final act, and it did feel a bit out of place, but it's just a great film from this year. I give it an 8.5. And then I watched Hundreds of Beavers. This is another 2024 film that intrigued me after Shafrillas Productions talked about it in his video, and it's got great reviews on Letterboxd, so I thought I'd give it a watch. And it might be one of the most genius films I've watched. There's so many visual gags in this film, some that are very blink and you'll miss it, and they all basically land, with some gags coming back around again, and again, there's some unbelievable gags in here which just baffle me with how someone could ever think up something like that as a joke. The visuals themselves are very unique as well, and you can tell it's low budget, but it adds so much charm to everything. It's also crazy that they managed to stretch something like this into an almost 2-hour runtime and still have me engaged basically the entire way through. I do think it gets a bit repetitive in the middle section of the film, as this main character is going place to place and learning how to hunt these animals. But overall, it's a super creative film that definitely deserves more attention. I give it an 8.5. I'm going to move my camera over here because I realise when I'm looking at my script, I'm looking away from the camera, and it's kind of weird. So I think it's better if I just record my videos like this from now on. And then watch Bringing Out the Dead. I decided to continue my Scorsese filmography watch with this film, and it's probably my least favourite film that's seen from him, but it's still great. I really like how it links the themes of death and seeing all these people die as a paramedic and how it can affect someone. Nick Cage puts in a great performance, and he's always great at playing a crazy person, so he was basically perfect for this role. Some really creative and interesting cinematography in here as well, which I come to expect from Scorsese, and it kind of brings you into the shoes of a paramedic and how stressful a job like this is. I do think things can get a bit messy as Nick's character is going from place to place, but overall it's another great film from Martin Scorsese. I'll give it an 8. And then I watched Pig. I forgot to do notes on this one, so we're going unscripted here. This is a 2021 film by the same director who's directing the new A Quiet Place film, and it's a very weird watch. I was expecting it to be something like John Wick, where it's very actiony and it's like a revenge thing, but it's kind of the opposite of that. Nick Cage doesn't punch anyone in this film, I don't think. I do think it gets a little bit boring around the middle act, where he's just going from place to place asking about his pig, and he really wants his pig back. But I like how it delves into like his emotions and how he feels about losing his pig, and it's kind of sad seeing him upset over losing his pig and how much he cared for his pig. I kind of like how it ends. It ended in a very unexpected way, and a very sad way, to be honest. It's a kind of sad ending. It's a very sad ending for a film. Overall, I liked it. I gave it 7.5. So those are all the films and TV shows that I've watched in the month of April. I'm currently watching Regular Show Season 3. It's still a great show. I just love the weird and wacky concepts. I do think this season is very long. It's almost 40 episodes long. I think I'm just over halfway through, but it's very good. I'm also watching X-Men 97. I watched the first season of the original show at the start of last year, and I thought it was fine, and I wasn't interested to check out the rest of the show, but I'm loving this season. I think it's really great. I do think I might be missing out on some stuff because I didn't watch the original show, but I think it does a good job at catching people up who are not really that familiar with the original show. And I just love all the characters in here. The Remember It episode 5, I think, was absolutely mad. I wasn't expecting it to be as brutal as it was for like something that used to be like a family Saturday morning cartoon show. I like how dark it can get, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. So yeah, if you like this video, please like it.